Gents, there's a lot for us to get through. A lot has happened over the last week, but I wanted to kick off this week with a little chat around Roberto Firmino, because it's no secret he's my favourite player at the football club. But if we are to look at maybe somebody who is in decline at the club right now, Salah's having another great goal-scoring season. Mane's been up and down. I think it's fair to say that we haven't seen the best of Bobby Firmino. We haven't seen the kung fu kicking, all dancing, all singing, happy Bobby Firmino that we have in recent years. And there's a few ways we can look at this. Of course, we can talk about maybe Jota coming in and Bobby dropping back into a deeper role. We can talk about Father Time catching up with him. We could talk about not having as many players around him. But I think it is fair to say, Steve, that whatever we think, we are seeing a pretty big dip in Roberto Firmino this season. Not just in his goal-scoring numbers, but in his all-around game. And it hurts me because I love the lad.
I'm kind of torn on it. Like, when you guys said earlier on we want to talk about Firmino, like, half of me, there's a bit of me that looks at him and say, well, like, you can't ever judge him on his goals, right? We know that. That's been the case for 3 or 4 years. So actually, take the goals out of the equation for a second. I have a similar kind of like love affair with him that you do. I think he just, when we play well, he's the one that makes it tick, isn't it? He starts to press. He gets, he brings everyone else into play. He makes this weird formation that we've had over the last few years. He makes it work by the way that he plays, and no one else. We've seen other people kind of fit into that role. No one else can do it in the same way, or has been able to do it in the same way that he. I think he's just in the same situation as the rest of them. I don't know that I would say for sure that he's been any worse than the rest of them, because I think they've all been terrible. Over the last couple of months, I don't think any of them, other than Mo Salah scored a lot of goals, but I don't think any of them could genuinely say they've been any more than a 6 or a 7 out of 10 in more than a couple of games. If the whole team is working, then I think he works. But then I guess it's a chicken and egg thing, isn't it? You could say, is the whole team not working because he's not doing it? I'm not quite in the kind of he's finished camp yet. And I know there's been a few pieces in the online and the papers been written this week about his apparent decline. I'm not quite on that page yet. I just think he's operating well below the levels he should be, but then that's the case with the whole team.
Where are you though, Steve, about him liking Richarlison's post? Where are you on that one? That I've got to be honest, mate, my heart sunk.
I don't get too much into worrying about who likes and who doesn't like on social media. They're all the players are mates, aren't they? All the Brazilian boys, they're all good.
It's a derby though. Come on, man, it's a derby.
I know it's not ideal, and it's the kind of thing that if we win, stuff like that doesn't get picked up particularly, does it? I'm not massively bothered about that kind of thing. I know it's not ideal, but I just think he's just having a tough time in the same way as the rest of the squad are, and I think it's I don't think you can pick on him as saying that he's either the root of it or any worse than the rest.
It is interesting though, because like seeing the differences between different countries and their players, because it weren't too long ago when you had the situation between Gomez, Trent and Raheem Sterling, where the fight from them three lads echoed into the international break, and you saw a scrap in training between Gomez and Sterling, and then you have after.
Let's be fair, there would be no scrap there. Let's be honest about it. Joe Gomez would just plough him he's twice the size of the man.
But then, obviously, after the derby, it wasn't just Firmino. To be fair, there's a photo, quite a comical photo of Addison cuddling Jordan Pickford, who, of course, is the man who ruined our season by injuring Virgil van Dijk. And
I gotta jump in here, because goalkeepers union and all that. Every goalkeeper goes and talks to the other goalkeeper after the game. That's sportsmanship. I think that's a little bit different.
Have you seen Klopp's face in the background? He went.
Yeah. No, I have, to be fair.
But yeah, it's one of them things. I think as for Bobby, I think his decline. It's not just been this season, has it? Since Project Restart, he wasn't quite the same. He didn't have that nip that he usually has, and that was when our decline started. I think after Project Restart, we didn't seem quite the same, and I constantly say there's not one reason for that. There's multiple reasons. But as Steve pointed out, and I've said myself for numerous weeks, when you look at our best games this season, that's when Bobby has been at the top of his game. And also, not just Bobby, you look at Trent too. He's pivotal and he's having a bit of an off season himself. The thing for Bobby Firmino is he's been known as the system for so many years that when he's dipped in form and the whole team's dipped in form, people solely point to him as an issue that maybe we need to move on. And also the fact that in his absence this season, when we brought Jota in, and I think it was that game away from home against Atalanta where you had the front three of Mo, Sadio and Diogo, it was outstanding. And that was probably the best we've been in front of goal all season. Bar Crystal Palace, obviously. So yeah, that's not helped him either. But yeah, I'm not in the camp that he's finished or his Liverpool career is over. Because I think if you sell him off the back of this season, you don't make much money on him. But I do think what he needs is some good competition, and we can get that done very easily by moving.
I want to just ask. I know Steve's waiting to come in, but I want to just pose him a question, and then he can get to his point. Do you think he suffers from a little bit of the Jordan Henderson, Jimmy Milner syndrome of just being a damn good, versatile footballer that the manager knows that he's converted into an 8.5 or a 9.5, whatever you want to call it? Is that part of his problem, that he's been played as a 9, even with the 9 on his back at this point, and he really isn't?
Yeah, opposition fans have always compared him to proper strikers and his goal scoring numbers. And Steve correctly pointed out earlier, you can never really point to his goal scoring tally. But we used to say that when he'd score, 10, 15 goals a season and say that. But when he's getting the numbers that he's got at the minute and he's not getting many goal involvements, he's not got the flair in him that he's usually got, then it's different. And we say this, but there's been moments this season, his clever assist for Salah against Leicester, that is peak Bobby Firmino. The only issue is we're not seeing it as often as we should and as we like from Firmino. And I think the issue was against Everton, he had that flair about him and tenacity at times, but his form in front of goal, which has never been a strong point of his, is probably worse than ever at the moment. But like you say, Craig, I think we do have to remember he's not a typical number 9, and for so many years it's been a system that has helped us. And maybe it's not Bobby, maybe it's just now people have worked out the system and that's the issue. But I think perhaps it's a bit of both. And for me, with the Everton game, Everton sat off him when he had the ball on the edge of the box because they knew that if he shot, it most likely wouldn't be a goal. And we saw a lot of opportunities that we had came through Bobby Firmino, and I feel like personally Carlo perhaps wanted that because he felt that he was the least threatening man in front of goal of the three, and that suited Everton as we saw as we didn't score.
That point that you just made about the formation I think is really interesting because Liverpool have played in the same kind of way for 3 or 4 years, haven't they? And people saw, Jota coming in, another striker coming in as being a threat to Firmino. Actually, that kind of thing might help him because if you set up against Liverpool, you know exactly what they're going to do. You pretty much know the spaces he's going to want to get into, don't you? And if the trouble is this season, Jota aside, but he's been injured for a while now, there's no other option. So if you're defending against Liverpool, you know exactly what to do. And it could well be the same as the fullbacks. If you're position managers, you look at what we say as fans, don't we? That when the fullbacks play well, when Firmino plays well, that's when we're at our best. Entirely possible that managers are going, that's where Liverpool are at their best. So they're closing down spaces around Firmino. They're closing down the fullbacks a little bit. Stopping off those things that we love as fans so much. And that makes sense to me.
That's the thing. I think they've worked on Firmino and the fact that he likes to find space for the other two. And rather than that, I think maybe they're just thinking, okay, let him be the one that has to, force him to take a shot on himself. Because there was just a couple of times against Everton where he had a great opportunity and you're thinking, okay, if that's fallen to Sadio or Mo, then undoubtedly that's a goal. And I don't necessarily think it's Firmino, because I think he brings us a brilliant option that's worked for years. But the fact that we don't have a proven goal scorer in the squad,
that's the problem. That's more of the more of the issue, that there's no actual alternative, is there? There isn't alternative, and actually, you look at City's bench at the weekend was just like absurd, wasn't it? Absolutely absurd. And I know we keep coming back to injuries, and I really didn't want to talk about injuries this week because it's boring. But there is genuinely not an option. Divock Origi, I would very much doubt you get any takers from the top 10 of the Premier League if he was to leave. You haven't got an option that changes the game, have you? Anywhere, Shaqiri, Origi, they're not. They're good players to come in and supplement a team that's playing well. They're not players that come off the bench and change a game, to improve what's already out there.
The players that are at the club, lads, that we can't get rid of, let's be frank about this. They're both in the transfer market. They're both available to be sold. They have been for the past couple of windows. When we're talking about Shaqiri and Origi, both of them, we just can't get the money we want for them. Let's be really honest about this. That they would have been out the door, and Ryan Brewster probably still would have been here if somebody came in and offered 20 million for Divock Origi in the summer.
It's stubbornness. It absolutely is. And when I spoke to Darren McAntony the other day, he said the simple fact is why we haven't got rid of Origi is because we set such high asking prices for players, and quite simply, people don't want Divock Origi for that money because he's not worth it. And the club need to bite the bullet and just go, you know what, we'll sell him for a bit more than what we're asking for. And we need to look for somebody better, because it was laughable at the weekend. You could see that we wouldn't have scored if we played all evening. And you thought,
whoa! I thought we were winning this game 6-0, Steve. What happened there?
Well,
hang on, Rambo.
I loved his ambition last week.